Hi guys, welcome back to Waxing On. It's Monday, and in Canada it's Thanksgiving Monday. We're enjoying a holiday. It's the turn of the seasons, and today we're going to look at another jazz album. I was going through my collection over the weekend and came across a piano player that we've spoken about a number of times, but we've never really looked at his work, and I did have one of his albums. I had another, but again, I can't find it right now, but I do have one we're going to look at that was very accessible, very commercial, different from the other album. That was one of the best-selling jazz albums of all time, if you can imagine, for solo piano. And we're talking today about Keith Jarrett. Now, you may remember we talked about Keith during the electric period of Miles Davis. He played with him at that point, along with Joe Zawinul. And I think Keith Jarrett would be one of my three favorite piano players. If we lump in Joe Zawinul, Keith Jarrett, Thelonious Monk. I mean, those would be three that I would really enjoy listening to. The album I have today is one called Treasure Island. And this one, he actually has a group backing him up. Now, the Colin concert that I talked about was actually a four-sided album where he had performed solo piano. And basically, it was four sides of improv. And it was just amazing what he was able to do. If you get a chance, I know it's on the streaming network, so you can listen to it. As well, if you go on Wikipedia, there's a whole story about how it was, how it took place, and how, with inferior equipment, Keith adjusted his performance to get the best out of the equipment he had to be able to make the concert work, even though it was on the verge of cancellation. And turned out, again, to be one of the best-selling solo albums of all time. Today's album, again, Keith Jarrett with a group. This one's a little more accessible, a lot more melodies that you might recognize to it. And my first exposure to Keith as a player was with Miles Davis's albums, again in the early electric period. But as a composer, the first music I heard of his was actually a song that was covered by Woody Herman. And it was actually the title to his album, The Raven Speaks. A second composition was with another kind of a jazz fusion group, Billy Cobham's group, where he did a song that was featured on Funky Thide of Sings. So I had been aware of his music. I'd never really heard him performing with a group. And this album, he's got quite a group with him. We've got Keith on keyboards, but surprisingly also, and this is something I just didn't realize at the time till I got into it here, Keith Jarrett is keyboard, soprano saxophone, and drums. I never knew he played soprano sax. Dewey Redman playing saxophone on the other songs. We've got Sam Brown on guitar, who does an excellent job on the tune Treasure Island. Really a nice song. Charlie Hayden on bass. Now, you may remember we touched on Charlie Hayden when we talked about the Carla Bley albums, because he was the leader of the New Liberation Orchestra. And I think we'll come back to Charlie Hayden probably in another couple of weeks, because I have another album of his, and we'll just kind of feature him as well, because as a bass player, he was just an exceptional player and really one of the great jazz bassists we had. Who else did we have on here? Paul Moulton on drums. Let me see, we had Danny Johnson on percussion, recorded February 1974. So this was recorded before the Colin concert. And a number of tunes. I don't know if you would recognize many of them. I'll give you the titles: Rich and the Poor, Blue Streak, Fools of All of Us, Treasure Island, the title song, and again, an excellent tune there with some nice guitar work. Indian Folk Song, The Minstrel, Angels Without Edges, and Sister Fortune. Now, the tunes, all written by Keith Jarrett. Don't have any contribution by the other players according to that, but this album was, and what was unique about this album, I'll just read you what it says here about it. It was mixed by means of a standard matrix system for full compatible stereo and quadraphonic reproduction. Hey, back in the 70s, quadraphonic stereo was something they were really pushing. Can you imagine 4 speakers instead of the 2 that we've been used to? I mean, 2 was quite a change from listening on a mono, where we had one speaker. We moved up to stereo. Then quadraphonic came along. Now, they produced a few albums in quadraphonic stereo. Well, they still call it stereo, I think. I remember Chase's album was one of the ones. But it never really took off. I mean, now surround sound is so commonplace we don't think anything of it, but it was a big deal back in the early 70s. And this one, it should provide exceptional listening experience when heard on any high-quality playback or broadcast system. And again, it's a nice sounding album. But if you're new to Keith Jarrett, it's a very accessible album. Some nice melodies in there. He's a nice composer. Very interesting group. I mean, Charlie Hayden's worth the price of admission alone. Dewey Ribbon on sax. A great place to start. Now, online, sure, he's on a lot of the streaming networks. And again, you can get that call-in concert online if you want to take the time to listen. 4 sides of some exceptional playing and exceptional improv. A lot of his other tunes are on there. Also on YouTube. So today we're just revisiting a player we've talked about before. A totally different style from the Miles Davis era. Keith Jarrett carving out his own piece of history with Treasure Island. Okay, that's it for today, guys. Everybody, enjoy your day if you're on a holiday. If not, hopefully the first of the week is going well for you, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday when it's Classic Rock. Till then, thanks for stopping by. Take care. We'll see you on Wednesday.